Weather Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
It is now 50 minutes past the hour. We'll end it with you now for your tropical update. Let's talk about what used to be Tropical Storm Claudette. No longer a tropical storm. Great news now if you're going to be doing some vacationing along the eastern seaboard, especially from Norfolk down towards the Carolinas. We're going to be looking at a weakening system from this point forward. It is now Tropical Depression Claudette. Lost a lot of its convection overnight, and its top winds went below the threshold of a tropical storm. The center of circulation right now is at 5 o'clock this morning Eastern Daylight Time, 35.8 degrees north, 70.3 degrees west, or about 300 miles east of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. Top sustained winds 35 miles per hour, below that threshold now for a tropical storm. Moving northeastward at 12 miles per hour, basically away from the coast. And it looks like within the next 12 to 18 hours, taking more of a turn more towards the east and northeast, which means it'll be even farther away from the coastline. So once again, within the next day or so, those dangerous riptides and also those high seas will be going down over the eastern seaboard. The pressure right now, 1,006 millibars, still on the rise. We do have a weakening system. But during the last couple of hours, we did see some convection trying to flare up one more time right around the center of circulation, or just to the northeast of there. If that trend would continue, now don't forget we are over open waters, warm waters of the Gulf Stream right now, and that could pose maybe a problem for some redevelopment again. We could be looking at some redevelopment if this situation would occur, but once again we do expect that if it does intensify any iota.
The Weather Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
All right, it's time for our tropical update, and Claudette's still out there. It's a depression. Was downgraded to a depression earlier this morning by the Hurricane Center at 5 a.m. Center of circulation around 35.8 north, 70.3 west. That's the 300 miles to the east of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. Movement northeast of 12, winds 35. Pressure 1,006 millibars. Guess what? I was doing a little investigating. You know, there's been a hurricane hunter out here this morning, and the hurricane hunter did find maximum flight level winds at 42 knots in the southwest quadrant. Here's our storm. Our tropical storm. Here's the southwest quadrant. This is where we found the maximum flight level winds, 42 knots. Tropical depression, tropical storm. Anyway you cut it, it's a weak system. And one thing they have also found is the pressure has gone up from 1,006 to 1,009 millibars. So pressure has risen just a little bit as this moves off towards the northeast. And as it moves to the northeast, what do we see here? Oh yes, that hostile environment. So as this moves ever so close to that hostile environment, it'll be dissipating. Meanwhile, down to the south, well, we have the upper low, big ol' upper low, down here in the southeast. Big ol' upper low. And coming around that big upper low is a nice little hunk of energy. That's why I see all these thunderstorms out here in the Atlantic. And with that big old upper low, we've had that southwesterly shear over our tropical storm. And that's why it really never got its act together yesterday. And you can still see some of these cloud elements blowing on off towards the west. So there it is. Let's get in a little bit closer now for you. And as we do so, there you can see our center of circulation. Here's the heavier thunderstorms on the southwest side. Still some of that.
The Weather Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
It's time to update you on the tropics, and it's that time of the year we get a little bit more concerned about what's happening in the Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico. And here's Claudette, 11 a.m. advisory from the Hurricane Center. Had the center of circulation of our tropical depression, 36.3 north, 68.6 west if you're plotting at home, 400 miles east of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. Winds only 35, movement east-northeasterly away from the U.S., and the pressure rising at 1,009 millibars, signs of a weakening trend. And on our satellite picture here, can you pick it out? Yes, indeed you can. There it is. There's the swirl. This is Tropical Depression Claudette. Yesterday and the day before, we saw it just oozing up from the south, and yesterday it was encountering the southeasterly shear around the big upper low around Florida here. Here's the big upper low, and we still have that flow coming up from the southeast. You can see as the low-level swirl moves east, the high-level showers and storms are being blown off towards the northwest. So still some shear. Now, as this moves off to the east, it hits this northwesterly flow, so it's getting it coming and going. So a very weak feature here indeed. And for those of you planning on heading off to the beach, it looks great. Here you can see it on Virginia's eastern shore, Maryland eastern shore, down through the Outer Banks. Looking good. What a beautiful beach day. Only smidgen of a problem could be some swells that were generated by this coming on in at the west-southwesterly offshore flow at the surface. Could be a couple of rip currents showing up. So check with your local lifeguard there at the beach there and make sure things are A-OK. Here's the visible shot here. Way up there in the northwest corner of the screen is the Jersey Shore.
All right, let's go ahead and check out the tropical update here. We'll start off with Claudette, which is our tropical depression, which we will continue to worry less and less about. It's moving east-northeast at 15. Pressure's up to 1,009 millibars. And it's caught between a trough and a ridge, and it's being shot on off toward the east, as per many of the computer models were indicating just a while ago. Let's show you the visible satellite picture. And once again, I mean, this thing's been a wonderful little low-level swirl, but that's about all. You'll notice the center right there, thunderstorms to the south, thunderstorms to the north, and again, a very, very evident low-level swirl. It even looks like it's moving faster than 15 miles an hour now. You can see that convection showing up on this infrared satellite picture. But of more interest to us, we would have to go south right now for what's going on. We have a very well-defined upper low sitting just east of Daytona Beach. Now there's nothing at the surface here. There's no low-level swirl at this time. But there is, interestingly enough, some convection in and around the center. And so this is something that we watch. Typically, when an upper low will sit here for a couple of days, it can start to fire up some convection. It can transform from an upper system to a lower system. And so we'll see what happens toward the surface down here. But some pretty decent squalls off the Florida coastline. But on the visible imagery, no signs of any type of structure that would lead us to believe anything's developing anytime soon. There you can see our depression Claudette off to the north. We take you into the Caribbean and, even more importantly, up into the north central Gulf. Now what I'm going to ask Sybil to do, since I hadn't asked her before, Sylvie, sweetheart, will you zoom in on this area for me? It's on AWG, and we can show you what's going on. Ooh, that's pretty. That's pretty. Anyway, apparently we're having some problems with that picture.